everybody to the Single and Stiletto Show. I'm Suzanne Oshima, and I'm a matchmaker and dating coach at Dream Bachelor and Bachelorette, and I'm also the founder of Single and Stilettos. Today we have on our show Joe Amoia, and he's a dating and relationship strategist at smarterdatingforwomen.com. And I'm so excited to have him here today because today we're talking about a topic that I hear from women all the time is about dating the strong, independent women and how men are intimidated by them. But before we get into it, Joe, I would love for you to tell our audience a little bit about you.
Sure. First of all, again, Suzanne, I want to thank you for the opportunity of being here with you today. And as you said, I'm a dating and relationship strategist, which means I'm all about real-life practical tips and strategies that are going to help a person create the results that they say they want.
Awesome. So let's just jump into it. So are men, because I get this question all the time from strong, independent women, are men really intimidated by strong, independent women?
There definitely are some men who are, but I say the men who are intimidated, they're not really men, they're boys. They're simply not secure in their masculinity.
And I think a good point is if he's intimidated by you, he's not the right man for you. You need the guy that's not intimidated by you, right?
Absolutely, because a guy who is strong in his character, in his masculinity, in his persona, wouldn't have a problem with that. I'd have no problem with a woman who is more successful than me.
Exactly.
I'd say, hey, great, even better.
But it's also because you're very confident in yourself. So
yeah.
So let's get into some tips. So what are some mistakes strong, independent women make when it comes to dating?
Okay. Well, the first thing we need to understand is that it all comes to how a woman is projecting herself. And one of the reasons that women are successful in their business life, in their careers, is because that creates a masculine energy. For a woman to survive in that world, she's got to take on masculine energy. And that energy works really, really well in the business world. It doesn't work well for a woman in the relationship world. And so very often what happens is women don't know how to carry that over. And so they come into, I don't need a man. I can take care of myself. And a guy goes, well, if you don't need me, you can take care of yourself. Why do I want to be with you?
Right.
And so they put on this persona is that there are these strong, tough exterior personas, which is not really who they are. That's not the authentic feminine qualities. So basically what a woman has to learn to do, she has to learn to leave that at work, not to come home and be some kind of wimp, some self-servant master, but to be a woman who shows, you know what, I'm a great woman for you. You're my man. Because men have egos, men have needs. And so what very often happens is a woman will attract, a successful independent woman will attract a guy who's a wimp. And what happens is she'll love it in the beginning because he does everything she wants, but then she realizes that he's got no balls and she walks all over him and she loses all respect for him. And so she'll leave. Or she'll attract the guy where it's like two rams butting heads. And ultimately the guy says, I don't want to be with another dude. And so she may look feminine, she may be feminine every external way, but the energy she's putting into the relationship is masculine, and ultimately the guy says, screw this, I'm out of here. So that always happens. It's one of those two scenarios.
Exactly. And, I love that you said about leaving the workplace. I actually tell women that before they go out on a date, especially because I'm here in New York City, and a lot of women won't even go home before they go out on a date. They'll go straight from work to the date. And I tell a lot of women that you need to leave your work personality at work. Do some sort of shutdown, because do not bring that personality to a date, because it's not attractive and it's not what a man's going to like about you. He's not going to go, God, I love that she's so high powered in her career. It makes her really hot. So I think that's really, really important.
And Suzanne, this is something we talked about earlier. It's really not that a person can shut it off. It's because that's who they are. They're really wired to be that way. Mm-hmm. And so they simply don't know any better. They're on autopilot. So the person they are in their business, they just simply do the same thing in their personal life. So they've got to learn to first be aware that what they're doing isn't working. And then they have to do the work to realize that it's okay to do that at work, but it's not okay to do it in a relationship. And they have to learn how to be, because a lot of it goes down to being vulnerable. And so that's why in the business world, it's like, I can't be vulnerable. I've got to be a man and I've got to put that energy out there because I'm going to get crushed. And so they've got to learn to be vulnerable. In their mind, it's like, if I be vulnerable, I'm going to get crushed again. And so they've got to do some inner work.
Exactly. And, when you bring up being vulnerable, ladies, what you need to understand is that in order to fall in love, it requires you to actually be vulnerable. And I don't think a lot of women realize that, is that you got to be able to trust somebody and be vulnerable in order to fall in love. If you're always like putting this guard up and like always in attack mode and I'm going after what, it's going to be really hard for a guy to climb all those walls and get around all of that.
And Suzanne, I want to add, it's what I call healthy vulnerability, because you don't want to be vulnerable to the wrong jerk.
Right.
A guy who's showing you from the beginning that he's only interested in you for one thing. You want to be vulnerable to the right guy, the guy who earns that trust, who earns the ability to show you that you're the right woman for him.
Right. And also, when I say vulnerable, I mean more in terms of being more open with the man and just telling him things about you, telling him your emotions, sharing your feelings, whatever it is. It's about being more open, because a lot of women will say, well, I don't want a guy to get to know me too well, but I don't want to tell him all these. They put up all these walls, and I'm like, if I feel these walls, I know a guy on a date feels these walls, and I feel like it's so hard to get in there. I don't know if it's worth the work, right?
You just hit the nail on the head. Put yourself in the position of a guy who's looking for a woman, and she's there saying, I'm going to be closed off. I'm not going to give you all of me. This guy's like, this woman's too much work. I don't want to be with this, because, at this stage, most guys have been around the block and they can detect that stuff in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something that women really need to realize, is that you've got to be in, you've got to be willing to go in that this is who I am. And I'm not going to just give you everything right from day one, but I'm going to make you earn that trust. And as long as you're showing me to do that, then I have no problem sharing everything in my life. And if you do have a problem sharing things in your life, then you might want to take a good look in the mirror and say, maybe you got some work to do.
Exactly. Okay, so what's another mistake women make?
The biggest one is, or the second biggest one, is really not letting the guy earn that trust. We talked about this in one of the previous videos, is that just from day one, going in and just going full bore, and just coming full steam, is where dating is a process. I would say it's like, in the business world, when they're going to hire a new employee, they put them through a process, a hiring process. They get their resume. They take them in for a couple of interviews. Then even if they think they're the right person, they put them on a probation period. And we've got to look at dating kind of as the same way. Not just go in on 2 dates, oh, it's great, he's the one. Because the chemistry's there, the excitement is there, he's got a great portfolio.
Right.
That's not how it works. You got to really take your time and really ease your way into it, which is, again, challenging for a strong, successful woman, because she's in this world where she's like, hey, I'm great, I don't need a man. But that's not really serving her very well.
And I hear that exact line from a lot of women is, I'm great, I don't need a man. And this is what I will tell women. You need to take a reality check, because if that's what you're saying, that's also the energy you're putting out there. And then you're the same person that comes to me and goes, why can't I meet a man? You're putting out the energy, I don't need a man, so that's why you're not meeting a man. And also, you know what? I don't believe that. I believe that everybody wants to be in a relationship. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching this video or listening to this podcast, because you want to make some changes in your life and you want to find the right man. It's about, again, being vulnerable and saying, you know what, I do want to find the right man.
I agree 100%. And I say 2 things. First of all, if you didn't need a man, God wouldn't have given you a vagina. Okay? So let's be real. The universe designed things perfectly, so that's all I'll say on that. But secondly, from my experience, what I find, whether it's a man saying I don't need a woman or a woman saying I don't need a man, what they're really saying is I've had one and I've gotten hurt. And I'm afraid of getting hurt again. So I'll put on this persona, I'll build these walls to protect myself from getting hurt again. Because the reality is we come into this world being wired to love and to be loved. And so we all need it. We all want it. Babies, if they don't get love from as infants, will actually fail. And I forget there's a medical terminology. I think it's failure to thrive. But we all need it. We all want it. So let's just be real and say, I want it. I'm just scared as hell of getting it.
Great point. And this is what I want people to take a reality check on, is that you may be okay right this second without a man, but let's think in terms of the future. When you're in your 60s or 80s, do you really want to be alone the rest of your life? Or do you want to be spending your golden years with someone special and having someone to support you? Are you going to be okay then without a man, right?
So I look at it like this, is that life is like a cake, and you can only be the best cake you can be. A man is simply the icing. Okay? And he just takes your experience to a different level. Not that a cake in and of itself is a bad thing. It will never give you the experience as a cake with icing. And that's the way you have to. And what happens is a lot of women think that they just go for the icing. And I would say you can put icing on dog food, it'll still taste like crap. You've got to be a good cake before the guy can come along and complete you.
Exactly. So, Joe, do you have another tip for us?
These are really the two big main ones, and I really think those who are watching should really go back and focus on this, is because the biggest challenge for strong, successful women is really putting on this persona that you don't need a man. And I want you to understand that. Put yourself in the guy's position. If you don't need a man, you don't want a man, why is the guy going to commit himself to you?
Right. And that's probably, if you have that attitude, that's why all the men that you keep dating are disappearing, because they pick up on that energy of, I don't need a man, right?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
The other thing that I want to bring up, one last tip, is I noticed that a lot of women will use that excuse of, men are intimidated by me because I'm a strong, independent woman and I'm successful and I make a lot of money, and that's why I can't meet a man. And this is what I will tell you, ladies, is the more you make up excuses, the more you're blocking yourself from actually meeting the right man. So stop making excuses as to why, that's happening, and start looking at, what am I doing that I need to change my energy so I do meet the right man?
Absolutely. And the more you rub a guy's face in it that you're more successful than he is, or that you don't need him, the more he's going to go, it's obvious you don't need me, so why do I want to be with you?
Exactly. You know what? I want to ask you one last question, because I think this is a really, really important point. Because with the strong, independent woman, and she's successful in business, there's a lot of times where she can actually make more money than the man. So my question to you is, if a woman makes more money than the man, is that intimidating to a guy? Like, say he's dating her and, she makes like whatever it is, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 more than he does. Can that be intimidating to him?
Well, again, to some guys, absolutely. Guys who are insecure and who aren't full on in their masculinity, where I know a lot of, our kids are middle-aged, so there's a lot of parents in middle age where the women make a lot more than the men. I know several scenarios where the guys stay home because the woman's making so much money, and that works for them. So I really think it comes down to the individual, and I think what women need to understand is stop worrying about men, okay, and start looking for the man. So if you're a strong, successful woman and you feel men can't handle that, well, until you date every man on the planet, you cannot say all men. And then focus your energy on finding the man who will be able to deal with that.
Excellent, excellent point. Well, Joe, these have been some excellent tips for our strong, independent ladies. So tell our audience how they can find you.
Sure. It's real simple. Simply go to our site, which is www.smarterdatingforwomen.com.
Great. Thanks, Joe, for being on the show. And thanks, everybody, for joining us on the Single on Stilettos show. Our show is available both in video format and podcast format. If you would like to view the videos, you can go to singleonstilettos.com. And if you would like to get the podcast, you can download it from iTunes. And if you would like to get our free report on the top 10 secrets on what attracts a man and what turns him off, you can click right here on the video, or you can go to singleonstilettos.com.